There is a question that is rarely asked because it dismantles almost every comfortable narrative about spirituality, awakening, and freedom. And the question is simple, yet radical. What if nothing went wrong? What if the sense of limitation, forgetting, and even suffering was not the result of a cosmic mistake, an external trap, or a hostile force, but the logical consequence of a conscious choice made at a level the current mind does not remember? Throughout history, different traditions have spoken of an original forgetting. In ancient Egypt, Greece, the Vedic texts, Hermetic philosophy, and even modern interpretations of physics and neuroscience, the same core idea appears again and again. Consciousness does not fall into matter by accident. It enters. When we speak of Thoth, whether as a mythological figure or as a symbolic archetype of cosmic intelligence, we must be precise and honest. This is not a historically verifiable individual in the modern scientific sense. It is a symbol, a code used by ancient cultures to express something that could not yet be articulated rationally. The idea that consciousness actively participates in the design of the reality it experiences. This video is not about denying human pain or romanticizing suffering, nor is it about offering simplistic promises of transcendence. Here we clearly distinguish what is scientifically observable from what belongs to philosophical and spiritual interpretation. Mature spirituality does not escape truth. It integrates it. Modern neuroscience shows that many decisions occur before we become consciously aware of them. Physics, in turn, reveals a universe that behaves less like a solid object and more like a field of probabilities responding to observation. These facts are measurable and documented. The spiritual interpretation that consciousness chooses experiences before manifesting as identity belongs to metaphysics. And that is where our exploration begins. Perhaps the greatest mistake of modern spirituality is treating reality as a prison to escape. This narrative preserves a subtle position of victimhood. As long as we believe we were trapped, we wait for an external exit. But what if awakening is not about escaping the illusion, but remembering why we entered it? Further ahead, we will explore how ancient traditions viewed matter as a temporary field of experience, and how psychology explains identity as a constructed narrative essential for the game of reality to function. Before we continue, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, not as a habit, but as a conscious choice. By doing so, you help expand a collective field of clarity, responsibility, and integrated awareness. If this message has reached you, it was not by blind chance, but it was not imposed either. Perhaps this is simply the moment you are ready to consider an idea that changes everything. The illusion was never a trap. It was an agreement. And if there was an agreement to enter, there is far more freedom than you were taught to believe. If we accept, even temporarily, the idea that consciousness was not captured but entered voluntarily into a field of experience, then we are forced to reconsider almost everything we believe about freedom, imprisonment, and awakening. Because the concept of a prison only makes sense when something is imposed against one's will. And that assumption begins to collapse when ancient traditions are read symbolically rather than literally. Ancient texts speak of a fall, of forgetting, of descent into matter. Yet when viewed through the lens of modern psychology, these narratives resemble not punishment, but voluntary immersion. Developmental psychology shows that identity only forms through a temporary forgetting of expanded awareness. A child must forget its unity with the world to develop a functional sense of self. Without that, there is no learning, no contrast, no individual experience. This is not mysticism, it is observation. The human brain operates by creating models of reality. It filters, reduces, selects. If we perceived everything at once, cognition would collapse. Perceptual limitation is not a flaw. It is a requirement for coherence. So when spiritual traditions speak of veils or illusion, a mature reading suggests function, not imprisonment. Later on, we will explore how this same principle appears in modern physics, where systems become defined only when degrees of freedom are restricted. Definition arises through limitation. The problem does not come from limitation itself. It arises when limitation is forgotten as a choice and experienced as a fixed destiny. Neuroscience shows that prolonged emotional suffering is less about events and more about the narratives we attach to them. When we believe this should not be happening, resistance is created. When we believe there was no choice, agency disappears. It is crucial to be precise here. Saying that consciousness chose to enter this experience does not mean blaming individuals for everything that happens to them. It does not deny trauma, injustice, or real-world conditions. It simply acknowledges a deeper layer of participation that is not accessible to the everyday mind, but can be intuitively recognized through expanded perspective. Later, we will address why confusing responsibility with guilt is one of the greatest obstacles to awakening. Guilt paralyzes, responsibility liberates. Perhaps this is why so much modern spirituality feels empty. It promises liberation without presence, transcendence without integration. It teaches escape from the game, when all evidence suggests awakening is about learning how to play consciously. Look at your own life. The moments that transformed you most, were they comfortable or challenging? Growth requires friction. Without resistance, there is no perception of strength. Without contrast, there is no awareness of choice. If this is true, then the illusion is not a mistake to escape, but a training environment. The problem was never being here. The problem was forgetting why. And the first step to remembering may not be seeking answers outside, but honestly observing how you relate to experience itself. There is a critical point where many people on the path of awakening become confused, and it is not due to lack of information, but excess of it. We live in a time where deep spiritual concepts circulate freely, mixed with scientific language, catchy phrases, and promises of quick liberation. This creates a sense of progress, when in reality it may only generate displacement. The mind collects maps, but the internal system continues operating the same way. Cognitive psychology calls this the illusion of understanding. Recognizing a concept is mistaken for embodying it. Knowing that reality is a mirror does not mean living in coherence with that truth. Knowing that consciousness influences experience does not mean taking emotional responsibility for one's reactions. This is where the illusion becomes more refined, not because it deceives, but because it adapts to the level of awareness observing it. Later on, we will explore simple practices that help integrate this understanding into the body and daily behavior. For now, it is essential to recognize something fundamental. Real awakening does not happen when you acquire new ideas, but when old identifications begin to lose their grip. And that process is rarely comfortable. Effective neuroscience shows that the human brain is deeply attached to predictability. Even painful experiences are preferred when they are familiar. The nervous system seeks familiarity, not happiness. This explains why many people say they want change, yet unconsciously resist real transformation. Change requires letting go of old versions of the self, and the brain interprets this as a threat. When spiritual traditions speak of ego death, this should not be taken literally or romantically. It does not mean eliminating personality, but softening it, allowing identity to become flexible, a tool rather than a prison. Science does not claim that a separate consciousness chooses experiences before birth. What it does show is that the sense of self is a dynamic construction shaped by attention, memory, and context. The spiritual interpretation arises when we realize that if identity is constructed, It can also be reorganized, not magically, but through process. Illusion, then, is not an external enemy to fight. It is the set of automatic narratives running when attention is absent. And attention, as research consistently shows, is trainable. Where attention goes, experience organizes itself. Perhaps this is why so many traditions emphasize presence and inner observation, not as morality, but as inner technology. Observing thoughts and emotions without merging with them creates space. And space is freedom. If you are following this reflection, I invite you to like this video now, not mechanically but consciously. Small intentional actions, repeated over time, shape both external algorithms and internal patterns. Both respond to coherence. You may anchor this understanding with a simple phrase, silently, or in the comments if it resonates. I observe my experiences without becoming them. As we continue, we will explore how observation is not withdrawal from life, but deeper engagement with it, and why true freedom is not about leaving the human experience, but moving through it without getting lost. When reality begins to be seen as a responsive system rather than a fixed structure, a subtle but profound shift occurs. The question is no longer, how do I escape this, but how am I participating in this? This change transforms the inner position of the observer. You are no longer trying to exit a maze, but learning how to read the map while walking. Modern psychology, especially approaches based on mindfulness and emotional regulation, shows that we do not react to events themselves, but to automatic interpretations that arise before conscious awareness. The space between stimulus and response, once considered negligible, is now understood as trainable, and that space is where freedom begins to emerge. When spiritual traditions describe reality as illusion, this is often misunderstood as meaning the world is false. A more accurate interpretation, one aligned with scientific observation, is that illusion is interpretative, not unreal. Reality functions like an interface. Just as a screen allows interaction without revealing circuitry, perceived reality provides a consistent field of experience without exposing all layers of existence. Trying to destroy the illusion usually creates internal conflict. You do not destroy an interface, you learn to use it consciously. Denying the body or daily life in the name of spirituality leads not to transcendence, but dissociation. Neuroscience shows that transformation stabilizes through repetition and emotional meaning. Insight opens the door, but daily practice keeps it open. Language plays a crucial role here. Words are not only communication, they organize internal experience. Repeated consciously, they reshape attention, emotion, and decision-making. This is why affirmations are not superstition. They are focus, repetition, and coherence. The statements you write, in the comments or in your personal notebook, are more than words. They are vibrational codes. When written, read, and repeated consciously, they create an energetic circuit that reprograms the mind and anchors a new timeline in your field. That is why commenting is not only engagement, it is anchoring collective consciousness. Repetition transforms vibration into identity. If you choose to seal this understanding now, write, here, or privately, I consciously choose the frequency that creates my world. Repeat it daily. Let it become the soundtrack of your vibrational field. Scientifically, this reorganizes attention and behavior. Spiritually, it aligns intention and experience. Two languages describing the same phenomenon. Soon, we will explore how to live fully in this world, creating, loving, deciding, without being absorbed by fear-based narratives. Because awakening is not proven by what one says, but by how one responds to life when no one is watching. There comes a moment on the path of awakening when the narrative of illusion loses its emotional appeal, not because reality suddenly changes, but because consciousness no longer finds comfort in the idea that something external is the primary cause of experience. This moment is usually quiet. It does not arrive with euphoria or visions, but with a simple realization. If I participate in shaping my experience, I can no longer hide behind the belief that I have no choice. This marks the transition from conceptual spirituality to spiritual maturity. And this is where many retreat. Psychology refers to this as resistance to agency. Human beings often prefer believing they lack power rather than facing the responsibility that comes with having it. Power implies accountability. It implies recognizing that repeated emotional patterns, postponed decisions, and fear-based relationships are not merely what happened, but patterns sustained over time, often unconsciously, but sustained nonetheless. Responsibility does not mean total control. It does not mean everything could have been avoided. Life involves biological, social, and historical variables beyond individual control. Science is clear on this. What becomes evident, however, is that our responses to these variables are highly adaptable, and response is destiny in motion. When spirituality speaks of timelines, this should not be taken literally as parallel universes in the science fiction sense. Physics treats such ideas through specific mathematical models, not personal choices creating alternate realities. The spiritual interpretation uses timeline as a functional metaphor. Sustained patterns of response generate predictable trajectories of experience. If you respond with fear, life organizes around defense. If you respond with openness, it organizes around learning. This is not mysticism. It is behavioral observation. Spiritual language simply extends this understanding to perception and meaning. Awakening, then, is not realizing that nothing is real. It is realizing that experience is real enough to require presence and flexible enough to allow choice. Soon, we will explore how this choice shows up in daily life, in avoided conversations, unspoken boundaries, and desires silenced by fear. Illusion is not only metaphysical, it lives in small, unnoticed automatisms. The nervous system seeks predictability. This explains why even conscious individuals repeat patterns that no longer reflect who they know they can be. The body updates more slowly than the mind. Practices involving breath, bodily awareness, and presence are not rituals. They are update mechanisms. Freedom is not doing whatever one wants. Freedom is not being ruled by automatic reactions that no longer serve. If this reflection resonates, take a moment to observe where in your life a different response is already possible, not with judgment but with curiosity. Curiosity is one of the most intelligent forms of awareness. You may choose to anchor this direction with a simple phrase in the comments or privately. I choose to respond with presence. This does not change the world instantly. It changes the point from which you observe it, and over time that changes everything. We arrive at a point where the initial question no longer feels provocative, but quietly evident. If the illusion was not a trap, if forgetting was not a mistake, then the human experience is no longer a problem to escape. It becomes a field to inhabit with clarity. This changes everything. Science does not claim that you chose this life before birth. What it does show is that identity is constructed. Attention shapes experience, and repeated emotional patterns create predictable trajectories. Mature spirituality does not deny this. It symbolically extends it, suggesting that consciousness participates more deeply than we were taught. The mistake is not using spiritual metaphors, but using them to avoid responsibility. True awakening does not distance us from life. It brings us into it with greater precision, ethics, and presence. There is no higher place to escape to, no magical timeline where everything resolves without awareness. The highest timeline is not a destination, it is a sustained internal state. It is the difference between reacting automatically and responding consciously. If there was consent to enter this experience, then there is authorship to remain within it differently. You do not need to control reality. Control is an illusion of the ego. What is available is coherence. When thoughts, emotions, and actions align, the system reorganizes, sometimes slowly, sometimes unexpectedly, but always consistently. The most transformative practices are simple and repeatable, observing before reacting, naming emotions instead of becoming them, choosing presence in daily interactions. You may return to the anchoring phrases shared here, not as magic, but as attentional tools. I consciously choose the frequency that creates my world. I observe my experiences without becoming them. I choose to respond with presence. Repeat them whenever old patterns try to take over. Repetition is not for convincing the universe. It is for training the nervous system. And now, to close this collective field of awareness, if this message resonated with you, share it. Help expand this field of consciousness, because each awakened person illuminates hundreds of others. Leave your comment, your vibration, your testimony, not only for engagement, but because your energy is part of this collective construction. Remember, the highest timeline is not a place in the future. It is a state of being, available here and now. May you walk in peace, clarity, and love. Until the next awakening.